The lamb spoke in a hoarse voice. Telling you won't help. They said even a divine-level healer might not be able to cure it. Hearing this, I snorted. How do you know I can't do anything? But first, tell me how you got injured. Then the lamb told me what had happened. It turned out that during the freshman trial, he had fallen into a swamp. When he came out, his legs were already gone. Even more bizarrely, the wounds had healed on their own. After thinking for a moment, I took out a bottle of the giant poisonous Jiao's spinal fluid and gave it to him to drink, but it had no effect at all. It seems the only way is to ask the White Hospital for help. Who would have thought that the Soul Devourer, which once nearly destroyed the entire human world, would now become the source of my power as a transcendent? Just moments ago, I arrived in Scythe City and found the severely injured lamb. I thought the giant poisonous Jiao's spinal fluid would help him recover, but it turned out this tried-and-true antidote had no effect whatsoever. So I took him directly to Xiaojing Academy. I believe the White God and his team will surely have a way to cure him. On the way, I used the communicator to inform the White Hospital about this. In response, the White Hospital specially invited a divine-level healer to come. Now, 3 divine-level experts have gathered at the White God's courtyard. However, after examining the lamb's injuries, they were all puzzled. Even the divine-level healer, the medicine god, had never seen such a condition. Meng Anwen shot a beam of light at the lamb, and the lamb's vitality instantly surged. But moments later, his vitality rapidly declined again. Seeing that it wasn't working, the medicine god also took out a potion and gave it to the lamb. But the result was the same as before. The lamb's vitality peaked and then rapidly declined again. For a moment, no one could figure out what was going on. This is strange. It seems there's something inside him that's constantly devouring his vitality. No matter how much vitality he has, it's instantly absorbed. But judging by the speed of the absorption, it should have drained him dry in an instant. Yet he's still alive. Could it be that whatever's inside wants to parasitize him long-term? If that's the case, let's lure it out and see what it is. I had Meng Anwen activate the Divine Tower to envelop the lamb. Instantly, the lamb's soul was extracted, and he fell into a state of suspended animation. The purpose of this was to make the thing inside think the host was dead, forcing it to leave the lamb's body. Sure enough, moments later, a strange force surged out of the lamb's body. In the next second, a palm-sized unknown creature flew out, but as soon as it appeared, it was immobilized in mid-air by the Divine Tower. Its shape was strange, like a wolf-like beast with a large head. Seeing its appearance, the medicine god said in confusion, "What is this thing? I've never seen it before." But Meng Anwen's expression changed drastically. "It's a soul devourer. I didn't think any still existed in the world." Hearing the words soul devourer, the white god and the medicine god's expressions turned grim. Although I didn't know what a soul devourer was, their expressions told that this was no small matter. Then, Bai Yuan took out a communicator and ordered the lockdown of the entire Jiangning province. I looked at him in confusion. Is this really that serious? Bai Yuan nodded. It's even more serious than you can imagine. If not handled properly, it could be catastrophic. Over 1,000 years ago, the human world faced a soul devourer disaster. It nearly wiped out the entire human race. The soul devourer itself has no physical form. Once it attaches itself to a person, it becomes extremely difficult to eliminate. It hides within the host's soul, absorbing all of the host's vitality and soul. The reason your friend is still alive is simply because the soul devourer hasn't found a more suitable host yet. After all, the lamb is still weak, and devouring his soul wouldn't be very beneficial. Now, the most important thing is to find a way to eliminate them. But information about soul devourers is extremely scarce in the outside world. Perhaps only the royal family still retains more detailed records. Hearing this, I immediately thought of Antares. He has existed in this world for over 1,000 years, even longer than the Divine Empire. He must know something about soul devourers. He might even have a way to deal with them. So we split into 2 groups. Bai Yuan and the others went to the royal family to check the records, while I headed to the ancient battlefield to seek Antares' help. Half an hour later, I finally arrived at the core area of the upper realm. Antares lazily lifted his eyelids and glanced at me. "Why are you here again, kid?" I told him that I had come to ask him a few questions. Then I explained the situation about the soul devourer's appearance. Hearing this, Antares was visibly startled. I said, "You're one lucky kid. Not only did you become a hidden class that even I have never seen before, but your talent is also extraordinary. You even obtained 2 primordial runes and possess 2 mid-level divine artifacts and a divine seat. Now you've even encountered a soul devourer. You really hit the jackpot, kid." I was completely confused by his words. It seemed like he was saying that encountering a soul devourer was a good thing. Then Antares continued, your human race probably thinks the appearance of a soul devourer is a disaster, but in reality, it's also a great opportunity. It just depends on whether you can seize it. If you can't, it might indeed become a catastrophe. Over 1,000 years ago, the human world faced a soul devourer incident. At that time, your race had many divine-level experts, but when the soul devourer first appeared, no one paid attention. By the time they realized it was too late, a fully grown soul devourer could rival a divine-level expert. In the end, the human race paid a heavy price to achieve victory. At that time, almost all of the human race's divine-level experts were wiped out. After the chaos of the soul devourer, the abyssal demons and the dragon clan descended upon the human world. If it weren't for a sudden emergence of a group of geniuses among the humans, the human race would have been annihilated by the abyssal demons and the dragon clan. This group of geniuses rose from ordinary professionals to divine-level experts in just over a decade. The reason for their success was related to the soul devourer. Although the soul devourer devours souls and vitality, if you can eliminate it before it fully matures, its soul power will merge with the professional soul. The professional soul will become much stronger, and their attributes will increase accordingly. When they undergo a class change, the probability of awakening talents and class evolution will be much higher. There are two ways to deal with a soul devourer. One is to consume a soul melting potion. This way, the soul devourer hidden in the soul will die, and its soul power will become the host's great benefit. Although this method has many benefits for your race, it offers no advantage to you personally. For a race, having a top-tier powerhouse is the most important thing. Even if every human became a divine-level expert, it wouldn't compare to having one transcendent, because the higher the level, the greater the gap between each level becomes. As he spoke, Antares leaned slightly closer. This appearance of the soul devourer is your opportunity. If you can seize this chance, you will undoubtedly become a transcendent. Hearing this, I felt a surge of excitement. Becoming a transcendent has always been my ultimate goal. Seeing my expression, Antares couldn't help but smile. He knew his words had struck a chord with me. Then he continued, the second method to deal with the soul devourer is to set up a soul melting array. Isn't there a divine-level array master among your race? Have him set up the array, and you will be the core of it. Once the array is activated, the soul devourers within it will be destroyed, but the soul power they leave behind will all converge onto you. Hearing this, I understood his plan. He wanted to use the soul melting array to eliminate the soul devourers and concentrate all the opportunities onto me alone. Thinking of this, I began to hesitate. Seeing my hesitation, Antares continued, although this will deprive many people of the chance to become divine-level experts, it will be beneficial for the entire human race. Also, do you know why your primordial runes have a limit to how much they can enhance your attributes? It's because your soul power isn't strong enough. The limit is determined not only by your body but also by your soul. To become a transcendent, both your body and soul must reach a sufficient level of strength. At this point, Antares' lips curled into a smile. If you agree to complete 3 more transactions for me, I will teach you how to set up the soul melting array, and even give you the recipe for the soul melting potion. However, I refused without hesitation. The price was simply too high. I might not even live long enough to become a transcendent if I agreed to his terms. After all, I almost died in the Thunder Valley last time. With that, I turned to leave. Seeing this, Antares, 3 transactions are too much? How about 2? After some friendly bargaining, we finally settled on 1 transaction as the deposit. I agreed to help him retrieve the Dragon Orb from the Dragon King's palace after my 3rd-class advancement. After I left, Antares muttered to himself, I didn't expect the Soul Devourer to really appear. Once he becomes a transcendent, I will finally be free. Entered. I have finally entered the Kunlun Divine Palace dungeon, on a difficulty level beyond hell. When I stepped into the dungeon alone, everyone laughed, saying I was doomed. But little did they know, my arrival would soon set a new record for the greatest achievement in human history. Just moments ago, I successfully obtained the method to from Antares. However, on the other side, the White God found no useful information. All they knew was that the appearance of the Soul Devourer was not just a disaster, but also accompanied by a great opportunity. But they had no idea what that opportunity was. Meanwhile, after being treated by the divine-level healer, the lamb had mostly recovered. Even his feet had regrown. Under his guidance, Bai Yuan and the others found the swamp where the Soul Devourer had appeared. However, it was impossible to see the Soul Devourers hidden in the swamp with the naked eye. So Meng Anwen activated the Divine Tower to drain all the mud and stone they discovered that beneath the swamp was another space filled with countless soul devourers. Clearly, this was their nest. Seeing this, the white god and the others looked extremely grim. They were worried that some soul devourers had already parasitized other people. Most importantly, they still hadn't found a way to eliminate the soul devourers. So, they decided to seal off the entire dungeon. Just as they were struggling to deal with the soul devourer crisis, I arrived at the location Bai Yuan had left for me. Bai Yuan immediately asked me, "Did you find anything useful?" I nodded and began to explain. "Did you find a way to deal with the soul devourers?" I nodded, then took out an ancient array diagram and handed it to Ming Anwen. This was given to me by Antares. He said this array can eliminate the soul devourers and also concentrate their soul power onto me, giving me the foundation to become a transcendent. Hearing this, Bai Yuan and Ming Anwen exclaimed in surprise. "What did you say?" Their eyes immediately focused on the array diagram in my hand. At first glance, they could tell it was extraordinary. The entire diagram exuded an ancient and vast aura. Then, Bai Yuan's excited gaze shifted to me. "What else did the one from the ancient battlefield say?" So, I repeated Antares' exact words. Hearing this, Bai Yuan tried to suppress his excitement and said, "He's right. Even with many divine-level experts, it's still not as good as having one transcendent. Since he said the soul-melting array can help lay the foundation for you to become a transcendent, old Ming and I will do our best to help you complete this ritual. Moreover, from his words, I can sense that he really wants you to become a transcendent." At this point, Ming Anwen spoke up, "But this array is extremely complex, and every soul has its limits. Your soul might not be able to withstand the soul power of all the soul devourers. So, we need to prepare for both scenarios. We'll prepare the soul melting array, but we'll also prepare the soul melting potion. We'll set up the soul melting array across the entire Divine Xia Empire. You will be the core of the array, and once you've absorbed enough soul power, others can take the soul melting potion to absorb the remaining soul power. This way we can also create many talented individuals for the Divine Xia Empire." Hearing this, I shook my head. I don't think creating too many geniuses is beneficial for the Divine Xia Empire. For professionals, qualities like perseverance and character are more important than talent. I've seen people with average talent but noble character who are fearless in the face of death. And I've also seen those from privileged backgrounds are cowardly and afraid of death. The latter are often easily tempted, and even if they grow strong, they might become puppets of demons. So, people like you, Teacher Bai and Teacher Yin, are more suitable. Hearing this, Bai Yuan and Ming Anwen exchanged a glance and nodded. "You're right. We'll do as you suggest. However, this array needs to cover the entire Divine Xia. We'll need some time to make thorough preparations. Also, we need to check if anyone else has been parasitized by soul devourers. In the meantime, you can go and tackle some dungeons." So, I prepared to head to the Kunlun Mountains again. But before leaving, I needed to transfer the lamb to Xiaojing Academy. I asked Bai Yuan if there was a way to do this. Hearing this, Bai Yuan smiled. "Kid, as the youngest divine general, with me and old Meng as your top-tier divine-level teachers, your influence is already on par with many divine-level professionals. Not to mention your friend, the lamb. Even if you wanted to send a pig in, the principal would have to find a way to make it happen." Hearing this, I felt reassured and headed to the Kunlun Mountains to train. On the way, passing through Kuren City, I ran into Feng Ziliu and his group again. At this moment, I felt very friendly toward them. If it weren't for them, the lamb might have already died. Thinking of this, I bowed slightly to Feng Ziliu. "Thank you for telling me about the lamb. If you ever need my help in the future, feel free to come to me." Seeing this, Feng Ziliu quickly waved his hand. No, we wouldn't dare." The others also looked extremely nervous. After all, the person standing before them was no ordinary individual. He was the youngest divine general in the entire human race, and a 3-star divine general at that. At just level 53, he possessed combat power comparable to a divine-level expert. Such a figure was far beyond their reach. Being able to exchange a few words with him was already an immense honor. After bidding them farewell, I headed toward the Kunlun Mountains. The Kunlun Mountains were home to numerous dungeons and ruins, ranging from low to high levels. As a result, you could see teams with vastly different levels here. I was dressed as a life class professional, and along the way, many professionals looked at me with curiosity. This guy is clearly a life class professional. What's he doing in the Kunlun Mountains? After all, life class professionals had very low combat power. Even the weakest monster in the Kunlun Mountains was beyond their ability to handle. So, I guessed he must be here to gather herbs. Listening to their conversation, I found it amusing, but I didn't pay it much mind. Then, I summoned the Lightning King spirit and took off into the air. In the next second, I disappeared from sight. The people who saw this were completely stunned. What the hell? What just happened? Only top-tier professionals at level 70 can fly, right? How can he fly at level 54? Everyone stared in disbelief at the spot where I had vanished. A short while later, I arrived at the foot of the main peak of the Kunlun Mountains. From here onward, the area up to the summit was a no-fly zone. I switched to walking, but just then, a deep voice called out from behind me. Hey, buddy, are you alone? I turned to see a heavily armored knight, waving at me. Behind him were over a dozen professionals. The man quickly introduced himself. It turned out he was Jinan Yeyu's younger brother, Jinan Jifeng. He was also here to tackle the Kunlun Divine Palace dungeon. Seeing that I was alone, he wanted to invite me to join their team, to tackle the dungeon together. But I shook my head and declined his invitation. In that case, be careful, Brother Lin. Recently, there have been professionals from the A3 Kingdom active in the Kunlun Mountains. Many professionals have clashed with them, but I didn't pay much attention to them. Although the A3 Kingdom had a population comparable to the Divine Xia Empire, and many professionals, their talent was rather mediocre. The entire country only had 3 to 5 divine level experts, and they were all low-tier divine level. The highest level among them was only 92, not even comparable to the Sakura Kingdom. So, I didn't take them seriously at all. An hour later, we finally reached the main peak of the Kunlun Mountains. Many professionals had already gathered here, most of them looking for suitable teams. At the base of the main peak, a dungeon entrance was slowly rotating. I immediately cast a detection spell on it. In the next second, information about the Kunlun Divine Palace dungeon appeared before me. That's it. This was the initial stage dungeon that Bai Yuan had mentioned. Only by clearing this dungeon and achieving a certain score could one proceed to higher level dungeons. But these requirements were meaningless to me. Without hesitation, I stepped into the dungeon. The professionals nearby were stunned. Did I see that right? Did someone just enter the dungeon alone? But the man next to him chuckled. You must be seeing things. This is the Kunlun Divine Palace dungeon. Its difficulty is far higher than even hell-level dungeons of the same tier. Going in alone is suicide. Little did they know, my performance was about to shatter their understanding. Shocked. I never expected. I just casually shocking all the professionals present. It even left the world's top genius teams feeling utterly hopeless. It turned out, the moment I stepped into the Kunlun Divine Palace dungeon, the professionals nearby were completely stunned. Damn, am I seeing this right? This is a dungeon with difficulty beyond hell level. Isn't he just asking to die by going in alone? Just as everyone thought I was out of my mind, a middle-aged shared a secret with the group. It turned out that many had tried to solo this dungeon before, but without exception, they all failed. The reason they risked their lives was because of a legend. The legend said that soloing this dungeon could grant special rewards, but after all these years, no one had ever succeeded in soloing it. So, this secret had become nothing more than a myth. Now, I had been teleported into the Kunlun Divine Palace dungeon. The moment I appeared, an hourglass materialized in the sky. If I could defeat the boss before the sand ran out, I would receive an excellent evaluation and gain access to the next stage of the dungeon. However, the entire dungeon was a no-fly zone, so flying was impossible. All professionals had to explore their way through on foot. Moreover, there were hordes of monsters blocking the path. To reach the final boss, you had to fight your way through. This was the main challenge of the dungeon. For professionals aiming for a high score, it was an even greater challenge. But for me, it wasn't difficult at all. In fact, I saw it as the perfect place to level up. After all, my corpse explosion skill wasn't afraid of numbers. Just then, a large number of dark figures charged toward me. Leading the charge were several massive beasts. After scanning them, I discovered they were level 55 enhanced elite monsters, but their total attributes were comparable to a hell-level boss of the same tier. For professionals of the same level, this was almost impossible to handle, especially since these monsters had a 30% damage reduction and enhanced vitality traits. But these attributes meant nothing to me. With a light tap of my finger, the curse of aging descended. Immediately after, my skill, Poison Nova, erupted. The two effects covered almost half of the dungeon. In an instant, large numbers of monsters were slowed, while the poison began to eat away at their health. Then, I summoned my undead army and the Poison Lich. The moment the Poison Lich appeared, a poisonous aura surrounded the skeletons. This poison aura could stack infinitely with Poison Nova. Under the combined effects of the two poisons, the monsters took over 350,000 damage per second. 4 level 55 monsters. This was an instant kill. Even with their enhanced vitality, they couldn't withstand the damage. In no time, a flood of kill notifications popped up, and my experience bar began to skyrocket. Then, the undead army advanced, and every monster in their path fell to the poison aura. Compared to the poison aura of the poison lich, my poison nova skill was much less powerful. Fortunately, I had the corpse of the poison god. The essence within his body could not only summon the poison lich, but also enhance poison-based skills. However, I could only use this after my 3rd class advancement. So, my top priority now was to reach level 70 as quickly as possible. Soon, I had cleared the entire dungeon of monsters. From the moment I entered the dungeon, it took less than 30 minutes. This was a feat unimaginable to other professionals. Now, all that was left was to defeat the final boss and proceed to the next stage. With the boss defeated, I could challenge the next level. This boss was a level 58 enhanced elite. Although its attributes were similar to a lord-level boss of the same tier, it had more traits than a world-level boss. It also resisted all curses and control effects. But that didn't matter. In front of the undead army, even without curse enhancements, it was just a matter of a few more strikes. The Berserker skeleton's greatsword, glowing with red light, struck the yak. The terrifying attack power made it howl in pain. In just one exchange, it was already on the brink of death. A few more strikes, and it would be over. But just then, a brilliant light erupted from its. All the Berserker skeletons around it were blown away. Even the elemental explosion from the skeleton archmage was blocked. At the same time, its power increased by at least 50%. Now, its attributes were almost on par with a level 60 world-level boss. Even the injuries it had sustained were completely healed. But even so, it was no match for the undead army. Even a 100% increase wouldn't make a difference. Soon, under the combined assault of the skeletons, the Kunlun yak lasted less than 10 seconds before being killed. Killing it gave me 5.8 million experience points and 2 platinum tier equipment pieces. But now, even the best equipment was useless to me. I would just sell it later for money. At this point, less than 1/10 of the hourglass had drained. In terms of time, that was about half an hour. Then, the hourglass transformed into a stream of light and flew into my body. I knew this meant I had been marked by the Kunlun Divine Palace dungeon. This also meant I now had the qualification to enter the next stage of the dungeon. I glanced at my experience bar and saw it had only increased by about 3%. At this rate, I could level up once a day by grinding nonstop. With 6 days left, before the soul melting array was activated, I estimated I could reach around level 57. Just as I was about to leave the dungeon, a small plant sprouted next to the boss's corpse. The plant emitted a holy white light. I immediately cast a detection spell on it. It turned out to be called Kunlun Snowgrass, a rare reward from the Kunlun Divine Palace dungeon. For professionals below level 80, it could increase their level by 1. For those below level 70, it could increase by 2 levels. And for those below level 60, it could increase by 3 levels. Seeing its properties, I was stunned. I never expected there to be an herb that could directly increase levels. The Kunlun Divine Palace dungeon had existed for so many years, but I had never heard of anyone obtaining Kunlun Snowgrass. This reward must require soloing the dungeon and achieving a certain evaluation to trigger this hidden reward. Thinking of this, I felt incredibly excited. I wondered if I would receive such a reward again if I soloed the dungeon once more. If I cleared the dungeon even faster, what other hidden rewards might I get? However, I didn't use the Kunlun Snowgrass immediately. I knew that everything had its pros and cons. Leveling up in this way might have unknown side effects. So, I stored the Kunlun Snowgrass in my inventory and planned to consult Antares later to ensure there were no negative effects before using it. Then, I exited the dungeon, but after resetting the dungeon, I entered it again. This scene was witnessed by the professionals who had been there earlier. They were all wide-eyed, as if they had seen something unbelievable. Damn! He actually soloed the Kunlun Divine Palace dungeon, and he cleared it in less than half an hour. Such a feat is something even top-tier professionals above level 80 couldn't achieve. Yeah, and it seems like he's not here to conquer the dungeon, but more like he's here to train. So, after leaving the dungeon and immediately reset the dungeon, some professional teams, upon hearing this, felt utterly hopeless. They had originally come to conquer this dungeon and set a new record. But now, they realized it was all in vain. Even the strongest professional team in the world couldn't clear this dungeon in less than half an hour. Meanwhile, some female professionals were deeply impressed by my achievement. They began waiting at the dungeon entrance, hoping to see me emerge again, but no one noticed. A pair of cold eyes appearing in the snowstorm. They were high in the sky, looking down from 1,000 meters above. The icy gaze pierced through the snowstorm, scanning everyone below. Finally, the gaze landed on the spot where I had just entered the dungeon. Action! The deity hidden in the Kunlun Mountains has finally made a move against me, but little did it know, it was no match for me. Just moments ago, after entering the dungeon for the second time, I picked up the pace. Not only did I deploy the undead, but I also used Corpse Explosion, which I hadn't used in a long time. This time, my dungeon clearing speed was noticeably faster than before. My experience bar began to steadily rise. Although each run only gave me about 3% experience, this was already much faster than other professionals. After all, for most people above level 50, it took at least a few months, or even half a year, to level up once. But at my current speed, I could level up in just one day. Soon, I killed the Kunlun yak again, but to my disappointment, the Kunlun snowgrass didn't appear this time, but that made sense. Such a rare reward couldn't be obtained repeatedly. So, I left the dungeon and prepared to enter again. Suddenly, I sensed someone watching me from behind, but when I turned around, I didn't see anyone suspicious. So, I didn't pay it much mind, and used a cooldown scroll to reset the dungeon. In less than a day, I leveled up to 54. My attributes and skills had all improved, but my frown deepened. The feeling of being watched grew stronger and stronger. Every time I left the dungeon, I could feel it, but I couldn't pinpoint where the gaze was coming from. Who was targeting me? Was it the demon worshippers? Or had the dragon clan and demons? But the human defense system had become very robust over the years. For demons to infiltrate, they would have to pay a heavy price. And even if they did, their strength would be limited. I was confident I could handle them if they came. After some thought, I focused on grinding the dungeon. But now, each run only gave me about 2.5% experience, which was slower than before. Still, I managed to reach level 55 within a day. The light from leveling up shocked the surrounding professionals. Damn, he leveled up again. This is insane. For others, it takes months to level up, but he did it in less than a day. It's so unfair. After reaching level 55, my experience gain slowed down again. Now, each dungeon run only gave me 1.5% experience. Calculating it, I would need at least 67 runs to level up again. I still had 77 uses left on my advanced cooldown scrolls, which was just enough to reach level 56. After reaching level 55, the number of Lich Generals increased to 35, and my summoning space expanded to 1,050 slots. The total number of skeletons in my undead army reached 36,750. I continued to distribute them evenly, with 12,250 of each type: berserkers, mages, and archers. Although the attack power of the skeleton mages and archers was inferior to the berserkers, especially under the effects of the strength, their burst damage was far behind. But I believed that their existence was justified. Since this skill exists, it must have its strengths. It's just that I haven't discovered them yet. Perhaps its true power will reveal itself in the future. Now, with the bonuses from my talents, the Berserker Skeleton's attributes had reached 312,000 points. Even a single attribute could rival a Lord-level boss of the same tier. If all 4 attributes were combined, even a world boss would pale in comparison to the Berserker Skeletons. I even fantasized that one day, when I reached the divine level, my skeletons might also reach the divine level. At that time, with a wave of my hand, I could summon an army of millions of divine-level skeletons. Unconsciously, I had used up all the charges of my advanced cooldown scrolls. My level had also risen to 56. Then, I activated a teleportation scroll to leave. Suddenly, a beam of light fell into the teleportation channel. In the next second, I found myself in a world of snow and wind. I realized that this was the work of the hidden enemy. They had interfered, but to my surprise, this was a world composed of elements. Clearly, the one who brought me here was a deity. So, I spoke calmly into the air. May I ask why you've brought this divine general into the elemental world? As I spoke, I placed my 3-star divine general badge on my shoulder. A 3-star divine general meant I had killed at least 3 divine-level beings. I believed this would intimidate the other party. Sure enough, after I revealed my 3-star divine general badge, the howling snowstorm suddenly stopped. Then, 100 meters away from me, a snow-white figure appeared. It radiated the aura of a deity, but its aura was unstable, indicating that it had recently ascended to godhood and was likely around level 90. Seeing this, I finally relaxed a little. A level 90 deity was something I could handle, but it was still best to avoid a fight if possible. So, I asked it why it had brought me into this elemental world. After a moment, its cold voice echoed. You may call me the Kunlun Snow Deity. I sense a divine seed on you that I need. If you hand it over, I will let you leave. Hearing this, I was momentarily stunned. I did indeed carry 2 divine seeds, one from the poison god, and another from the thunder god. When the Kunlun snow deity said this, I knew today's situation wouldn't end peacefully, because divine seats were incredibly attractive to deities, like a mythical weapon, placed before a divine-level expert. If the Kunlun snow deity could obtain either of my divine seats, its power would skyrocket. So, naturally, it wouldn't let this opportunity slip. The Kunlun snow deity spoke again. Hand over the divine seat, or I will kill you. Hearing this, I shook my head disdainfully. Aren't you afraid of the human race's divine-level experts coming after you? Besides, how do you know you can kill me? As I spoke, my expression suddenly changed. In the next second, the undead army appeared en masse. A sea of berserker skeletons charged toward the Kunlun snow deity. At the same time, the Lich generals buffed the undead army, but the Kunlun snow deity sneered. Frozen snowstorm, it chanted softly, and a dense snowfall covered the undead army. In an instant, the entire undead army was frozen solid. Even the Lich generals were no exception. The once ferocious undead army was instantly silenced. Only I, with my immunity skills, remained unfrozen. The Kunlun snow deity didn't care about this. It charged at me with a cold laugh. In my snowstorm world, I am invincible. In the blink of an eye, it was right in front of me, but I wasn't panicked at all. Instead, I smiled faintly. Not necessarily. The Kunlun snow deity suddenly felt a chill run down its spine. It sensed that something was wrong. Then, a flame raven appeared beside me. As soon as the flame raven appeared, the flame aura enveloped the undead army. In an instant, the ice and snow melted, and the entire undead army was freed. Immediately after, I began retreating rapidly with the undead army. Meanwhile, the flame lich pounced on the Kunlun snow deity. Soon, a deafening explosion shook the heavens and the earth. A massive fireball erupted behind me. The Kunlun snow deity let out a series of agonized screams. The snowstorm world began to tremble violently. Although the flame raven's self-destruction wasn't enough to kill it, it was enough to shatter its elemental world. If it weren't for the fact that we were in the Divine Xia Empire, and I wasn't sure of the exact location of the elemental world in the outside realm, I would have directly used the poison lich to kill it instantly. Before the Kunlun snow deity could recover from the first explosion, I summoned another flame raven. Seeing this, the Kunlun snow deity finally felt fear. In the next second, the flame raven exploded again. The snowstorm world cracked and shattered with a loud crash. A surge of flames erupted. The deafening noise instantly alerted the professionals in the Kunlun Mountains. What's happening? Why are there so many skeletons? I know. This is the undead army of the Divine General Ling. Is the Divine General Ling fighting someone? At that moment, my voice echoed across the Kunlun Mountains. Divine General's decree. Everyone, retreat 100 miles. My voice carried an overwhelming authority. As soon as I spoke, the professionals began to retreat rapidly. Only the professionals from other countries remained unmoved. At this moment, the Kunlun snow deity was engulfed in flames. It transformed into a massive fireball, screaming as it charged at me, "I will grind your bones to dust." Hearing this, I sneered, "You're not worthy." Exposed. Exposed. My true strength has finally been revealed before the world. The Kunlun snow deity, revered as a deity, never expected that it would be beaten to a pulp by a level 50+ professional. After being bombarded twice by the flame lich, it finally became enraged. It transformed into a beam of white light and charged straight at me. At this moment, it not only wanted to seize the 2 divine seats on me, but also to kill me to avenge its humiliation. However, after its elemental world was shattered, I confirmed that we were still near the Kunlun Mountains, hundreds of kilometers away from the Divine Xia Empire's urban areas. Therefore, I no longer had any reservations. The 2 runes on the back of my hand glowed simultaneously. The 2 primordial rune skills activated instantly. In an instant, my attributes reached their peak. The combat power of the undead army also soared to an unimaginable level. Although against a deity, this combat power wasn't particularly effective, and even restraining it was difficult. What I needed wasn't restraint. I just needed the undead army to hold the Kunlun snow deity off for a few seconds. The strongest berserker skeletons charged forward first, but just then, the Kunlun snow deity used another skill to freeze all the skeletons again. At the same time, it slowly raised a hand, and instantly, a giant palm made of ice and snow appeared in the sky, slamming down toward me. I realized that under the influence of the snow and ice power, there was no way to dodge, but I wasn't panicked. With the boost from the rune skills, each of my attributes had reached the 1,000,000 mark. Plus, I had the passive skill damage transfer, so I was confident I could withstand this strike. With a loud boom, my body was sent crashing down like a meteor. The professionals in the Kunlun Mountains gasped in shock. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. They finally realized who I was fighting. It was actually a deity, a true deity. They all knew how powerful a true deity could be. It was a being that could rival divine-level experts. At this moment, everyone was sweating for me. Meanwhile, the Kunlun snow deity slowly flew toward the spot where I had fallen. This is the fate of those who defy a deity. In its mind, I was already dead. After all, I was only a level 56 professional. There was no way I could survive its devastating strike. But just then, a green light suddenly shone from where I had fallen. I stood there, completely unharmed, amidst the ruin. Beside me, a raven glowing with green light appeared. The moment the Kunlun snow deity saw the poison raven, its expression changed drastically. Without hesitation, it began to retreat frantically. But then, its body suddenly froze. Its entire form was encased in a layer of white bone. Skill. Bone prison. Although my mental attribute had reached 1,000,000, the bone prison wouldn't hold it for more than 0.1 seconds. But that was enough for the poison lich to get close. In an instant, the poison lich had pounced on it. Then, with a deafening explosion, the poison lich self-destructed. A terrifying wave of poison erupted. The Kunlun snow deity struggled wildly in the toxic gas. Its body began to rapidly rot and melt. The professionals watching this were completely stunned. They never expected that this green poison could even affect a deity. They finally understood why I had told them to retreat 100 kilometers. If they were touched by the poison, they would surely die. Those who hadn't retreated now regretted their decision. The area within a dozen kilometers was enveloped in poison. This region had become a death zone. The foreign professionals who hadn't retreated were instantly wiped out. But what happened next left everyone even more shocked. I walked calmly through the poison, completely unharmed. Damn, the divine General Ling is too strong. Even the poison that can kill a deity can't harm him. At this moment, everyone was in awe. Meanwhile, the Kunlun snow deity lay on the ground, barely alive. It knew it was doomed. So, it calmed down and looked at me, speaking slowly. Can you tell me the meaning of the 3-star Divine General badge? I stood nearly a kilometer away, and replied calmly, a 3-star Divine General means I have slain 3 divine-level beings. The Kunlun snow deity was stunned for a moment, then let out a self-mocking laugh. No wonder you weren't afraid of me. You had already killed 3 divine-level beings before this. After I die, your achievements will include another deity. But as a deity, even in death, I must have dignity. As it spoke, its broken body began to glow brightly. Then, a Kunlun snow grass appeared above its head. Seeing this, I didn't hesitate and quickly retreated. As I retreated, I summoned the Undying Lich. In the next second, the entire Kunlun Mountains began to shake. The Kunlun snow deity self-destructed, taking its divine seat and divine artifact with it. The massive force sent me flying over 100 kilometers. The undead army was instantly destroyed. Fortunately, the Undying Lich's aura saved them from death. I also survived because of this. But unfortunately, its self-destruction cost me at least 90 billion experience points, and I didn't gain any benefits from it. Even my military badge showed no reaction. From the beginning, I had guessed how it knew I possessed a divine seat. The key was the Kunlun snowgrass. Originally, as long as you soloed the Kunlun Divine Palace dungeon within the time limit, you could receive an additional special reward. But since the dungeon's creation, no one has ever completed it. Thus, the Kunlun snowgrass has always existed. After countless years, the Kunlun snowgrass grew stronger and stronger, eventually mastering the power of wind and snow, and becoming a water elemental life form. So, when it self-destructed earlier, the illusion of the Kunlun snow grass appeared, and those newly grown Kunlun snowgrasses are all its descendants. So, the moment I obtained the Kunlun snowgrass, the divine aura within my body was already detected by the Kunlun snow god. Thus, for the sake of the divine position, it attacked me as I was preparing to return to the city, but it never expected that I possessed the strength to challenge beyond my level. Then, I crushed the teleportation stone and returned to Bai Shin's courtyard. At this moment, only Bai Yuan was in the courtyard. As for Meng Anwen, he had been busy setting up the soul-melting array recently, and it would take about another month to complete. Bai Yuan frowned upon seeing me. I sensed a divine aura on you. Did you encounter? I nodded. I did encounter a level 90 god, but I killed it. Hearing this, Bai Yuan was stunned. How did you kill it? Gods aren't easy to kill. So, I explained the entire process to him. When he heard about the Kunlun snow god's self-destruction, Bai Yuan's eyebrows twitched. A god's self-destruction could even injure someone like me, yet you emerged unscathed. He began to wonder if he had underestimated me. At this moment, I took out the Kunlun snow grass I had just obtained. Bai Yuan glanced at it and was immediately shocked. This is a treasure. How did you get it? I told him it was an extra reward from soloing the Kunlun god. Hearing my answer, Bai Yuan seemed thoughtful. He knew my nearly monstrous combat power could completely crush dungeons of my level, especially at higher levels. Even the hardest dungeons felt like child's play to me. It was no surprise that I could obtain extra rewards. But this Kunlun snow grass, he wasn't sure if it had any side effects. So, he advised me to consult Ming Anwen before deciding what to do with it. Then, he took me to Fortress Number 4 on the battlefield. In 3 days, a competition would be held here, and the winner would receive half of a divine talent stone. However, I had no interest in this competition, because I already possessed a complete divine talent stone. But Bai Yuan told me that a grand matchmaking event would also be held here. 10 days ago, various families and factions had already arrived. Now, Fortress Number 4 was a gathering place for beauties. Kid, don't just focus on that old man's granddaughter. There are so many beauties in the world. Why not take your pick? Although the Empire practices monogamy, divine generals and god-level experts have privileges. You can marry more than one. At that moment, a coquettish voice sounded from behind. I finally found you, my darling. Upon hearing this voice, Bai Yuan panicked. I have something to attend to. See you in 3 days. After leaving these words, he vanished on the spot. Then, I saw a woman in a light yellow dress flying over. She appeared to be in her early 30s, with stunning beauty and an extraordinary aura. Seeing Bai Yuan flee in panic, she shouted and transformed into a beam of light, soaring into the sky. Her speed was no slower than Bai Yuan's. Clearly, this woman was also a god-level expert, and not much weaker than Bai Yuan. It seemed she was Bai Yuan's ardent pursuer. No wonder Bai Yuan ran so fast. Here it comes. The once-in-a-decade Divine Stone Dungeon trial. It's finally about to begin. Yet, as an ultimate class professional, I became a guest on the same stage as god-level experts. Just moments ago, watching Bai Yuan flee, I couldn't help but laugh. The usually fearless Bai Shun was actually scared of women. Just as I was about to leave, a familiar voice called out from behind, Lin Daizi. I turned around and saw Xia Shui, the former class beauty. She quickly walked over and asked if I was here for the dungeon trial. I shook my head. Then I told her that I was only here as a guest to watch the competition. Hearing this, Xia Shui let out a sigh of relief. Thank goodness you're not here for the trial, you monster. Otherwise, what chance would the rest of us have? She knew very well that with my strength, even veteran professionals might not be a match for me. If I participated in the Divine Stone Dungeon, there would be no hope for the others. At that moment, a large group of people approached. Strangely, the group consisted entirely of women. Leading them was Jialan Yeyu. Seeing me, she exclaimed in surprise, "You're not dead." At the same time, a figure with a fragrant scent rushed toward me. Before anyone could react, she had already thrown herself into my arms. "It's so good that you're alive," Mu Xianxian cried as she spoke, tears streaming down her face. Xia Shui, watching this scene, immediately became curious. She had met Ning Yi before, but who was this beauty in front of her now? Mu Xianxian was so excited to see me that she momentarily forgot the occasion. Ever since Antares teleported us to the lower realm last time, I had used a teleportation stone to send her back to the human world. After all, at that time, the monsters in the lower realm were not something she could handle. Even the smallest creatures could instantly kill her. I couldn't even guarantee my own survival. Now, seeing me return safely, she couldn't hold back her tears. I gently patted her shoulder and comforted her. Of course, I wouldn't die, but if you keep hugging me like this, I might really suffocate. Hearing this, Mu Xianxian let out a soft eep and quickly pulled away. She realized that her behavior just now had been somewhat inappropriate. Her face instantly turned red. At that moment, a beam of white light descended from the sky. Lin Ma Yun, long time no see. It was Mo Yun, riding a holy spirit unicorn, slowly descending from above. Xia Shui couldn't help but exclaim, "Good heavens, another one." She couldn't help but admire my charm, attracting so many female friends at once, each one a stunning beauty. Like the others, Mo Yun was here to participate in the dungeon trial. At this moment, the Divine Stone Dungeon was set to open in a few hours. Professionals from all over the country were arriving one after another. The Divine Stone Dungeon only opens once every 10 years, and the final reward is half of a Divine Talent Stone. Although its effect is not as strong as a complete Divine Talent Stone, it still has a 30% chance of awakening a talent. For most people, this is an incredible opportunity. Even the spectator seats were filling up quickly. Only the guest area remained relatively empty. However, those invited by the military as guests were all individuals of significant status and strength. As a 3-star divine general, I naturally held a guest position as well, but as I walked toward the guest area, people in the ordinary spectator seats gasped in surprise. That's the guest area reserved for VIPs by the military. How dare an ordinary professional barge in like that? Does he have a death wish? Exactly. I wonder which family's brat he is. The crowd buzzed with speculation, so disrespectful of the rules. However, only Mu Xianxian and a few others knew that with my status, I had likely already been invited as a guest by the military. At that moment, a group of soldiers rushed over and blocked my path. Halt! The guest area is off-limits to unauthorized personnel. Seeing this, the crowd couldn't help but show expressions of anticipation. Something interesting is about to happen. However, when I pinned the 3-star divine general badge on my shoulder, one of the soldiers immediately saluted me. We pay our respects to the divine general. Seeing this, everyone was stunned. Holy crap, did I hear that right? He's actually a divine general? I ignored the commotion around me, because here, I saw the person I most wanted to see. At this moment, Ningyi was looking at me with a playful expression. I walked up to Ningyi and pulled her into a tight hug. Beside us, Ning Tairan was fuming, but he didn't dare say a word or interrupt us. Otherwise, Ningyi would definitely turn against him. He feared nothing in the world, except for his precious granddaughter. At that moment, a sharp cry echoed from the sky. In the air, a massive golden unicorn appeared, its overwhelming aura spreading in all directions. On its back stood a man, none other than Imo Xinghai, humanity's top summoner. As a level 95 summoner, his summoned beast had also reached mid-tier god-level strength. He descended from the sky with Imo Yun and landed in the guest area. Many professionals couldn't take their eyes off Imo Yun. So beautiful. The young lady of the Imo family is truly a stunning beauty. Whoever marries her must have accumulated 10 lifetimes of good fortune. At that moment, Imo Xinghai greeted Ning Tairan. Old Ning, long time no see. But Ning Tairan snorted. You old geezer, you're still alive? Hearing this, Imo Xinghai laughed heartily. If you're still alive, how could I die before you? The two were old friends, so their banter was casual and unrestrained. Suddenly, the sky lit up, and an enormous golden sword appeared in the air. Golden sword energy swept across the area, the sound of slicing air echoing continuously. The newcomer was Feng Chang'an from the Feng family. Like Imo Xinghai, he was a mid-tier god-level expert at level 95. However, he was renowned as the #1 offensive fighter. As the sword god class specialized in attack power, many professionals admired this class, hoping that one day, they too could become god-level experts with unparalleled offensive capabilities. Perhaps among the crowd, 1 or 2 might reach that level, but most would remain ordinary. No matter how talented they were, or how much their families expected of them, their ultimate achievements were uncertain. After all, only a select few could become god-level experts. At that moment, 2 more beams of light flashed in the sky. I looked up, and couldn't help but smile. It was my master, Bai Yuan, returning, and beside him was the woman in yellow from earlier. However, Bai Yuan's expression was somewhat awkward. Clearly, he had been caught. The woman then looked at me and said, You must be Yuan's disciple, Xiao Yu, right? I quickly thought it over, and immediately bowed. Your disciple greets Shenyang, master's wife. Hearing this, Bai Yuan's eyebrows twitched, but he didn't object. However, the woman beside him was delighted to be called Shenyang. Good. What a well-behaved child. Shenyang didn't prepare anything, so take this as a gift. With that, she handed me something. Bai Yuan then told me her identity. Her name was Zhu Qinglu, a level 94 god-level healer. Hearing this, I was secretly shocked. A god-level healer. There are only a handful of them in the entire empire. Their status within the empire is extremely high. It seems, I've gained another solid backer. Suddenly, the phantom of the divine tower appeared in the sky. Meng Anwen had arrived. Following him, a large group of people rose into the air. Each of them was a woman of remarkable beauty. Bai Yuan looked at me with a mischievous grin. See, these are Old Meng's lovers. If Old Meng agrees, you'll soon have over a dozen more Xinyangs. Hearing this, I laughed. Does that mean I'll get over a dozen? Bai Yuan's mouth twitched. You greedy little brat. I ignored him and took out the gift Zhu Qinglu had given me. After examining it, I realized it was a god-level healing talisman. As long as it had energy, it could repeatedly cast god-level healing spells. This was an incredible item. Even if I lost an arm or a leg, with this god-level healing talisman, I could recover instantly. Having it was like having multiple extra lives. So, I handed it to Ning Yi beside me. For me, this talisman wasn't very useful. If I ever reached a point where I needed to use it, it wouldn't be able to save me anyway. On the other hand, it could save Ning Yi's life. Clash. The 4 god-level experts from the military finally faced off in an epic showdown. Yet, Yi Hao, the leader of the 4 great divine generals, never expected that he would be forced to publicly apologize to a level 50+ professional. Just moments ago, I had given the god-level healing talisman from my Shenyang to Ning Yi, but at that moment, Mo Yun pulled Ning Yi aside and whispered, "We can't hold him back anymore." Hearing this, Ning Yi nodded heavily. "I understand. From now on, I'll train on my own. It might be slower and harder, but at least I won't hold him back." She knew that the gap between our levels was widening and that my leveling speed would only increase. So, she understood that she couldn't rely on me to carry her through dungeons like before. Doing so would only slow down my progress. Mo Yun gently patted her shoulder. "His path is different from ours. The enemies he faces are growing stronger. If he doesn't level up quickly, he might encounter foes he can't defeat in the future." Ning Yi clenched her small fists, her heart filled with determination to grow stronger. At that moment, Meng Anwen descended with the divine tower. His aura instantly overshadowed everyone present. The god-level experts, sensing his presence, were visibly shocked. "Lord Meng has finally advanced." Bai Yuan, with a look of envy, said, "I never expected him to reach high-tier god level before us. It seems I can't slack off anymore. I need to catch up to him as soon as possible." At that moment, the Divine Stone Dungeon's opening time finally arrived. A god-level expert from the military flew out of the fortress and activated a scroll. In the next moment, a dungeon vortex slowly appeared. "The Divine Stone Dungeon trial begins now." As soon as the words fell, a rays lit up across the field. Then, over 100 projections appeared in the air. These projections would display everything happening inside the dungeon. This dungeon trial wasn't just about obtaining the final reward. It was also an opportunity to showcase oneself to the world. The challenges and their difficulty would vary based on the participant's class and level. In other words, every professional would face challenges of equal difficulty, and this dungeon felt like a test to me. The better the performance, the better the rewards. Although the best reward is half of a divine talent stone, I feel it's far from the ultimate prize. Perhaps no one has ever achieved a true perfect score. So, I asked Bai Yuan, "What's the highest score ever achieved in this dungeon?" He told me the historical high was 95 points, but as long as you score above 90, you can obtain half of a divine stone. Suddenly, Bai Yuan seemed to realize something. "Do you also suspect that half of a divine stone isn't the ultimate reward?" Although Meng Anwen and I have suspected it, no one has ever achieved a perfect score, so it's impossible to confirm. Suddenly, he had an idea. His eyes lit up. "Why don't you give it a try? With your strength, you might break the historical record." Hearing this, I nodded. "But let the other professionals try first. If no one can break the record, then I'll take on the challenge." However, as we were talking, 4 powerful auras suddenly erupted from Fortress Number 4. The overwhelming pressure was followed by 4 god-level experts, led by Yi Hao. They appeared before everyone's eyes. Seeing them, Bai Yuan's expression darkened. "Why are these annoying guys here?" Moreover, Yi Hao has been secluded in Fortress Number 9, trying to master the Divine Tower. Now that he's emerged, has he succeeded? But Mo Xinghai, standing beside him, shook his head. No, he probably hasn't succeeded. Otherwise, with his personality, he would have already shown off. You know how fiercely he competed with these guys for the Divine Tower back then. Although I didn't know these people, seeing Bai Yuan's reaction, I understood they weren't friendly. Meng Anwen, standing beside me, introduced their identities. Yi Hao, the leader, is a level 95 divine mage. His seniority is even higher than mine and Old Bai's. The other 3 are Xia Shiai's, a level 93 divine mage, Wei Song, a level 92 divine warrior, and Meng Anwen, a level 92 divine necromancer. He also told me that their relationship with these 4 had always been tense, and a fight could break out at any moment. Hearing this, I silently memorized their faces. They might become enemies someday. At that moment, Yi Hao and his group landed in the guest area. Yi Hao's sharp gaze swept over the crowd, and finally settled on me. So, this is the Divine General Lin? Truly a remarkable young man. Then, his gaze shifted to the 3 women beside me. These 3 ladies must be the granddaughters of the Divine Generals, right? Feng Yin, Ning Tairan, replied coldly, "That's correct. Do you have any advice, Senior Yi?" Yi Hao smiled. "I have a great-grandson, a talented and handsome young man. He's a perfect match for your granddaughter. Shall we arrange a meeting?" But before he could finish, I interrupted. "Senior Yi, where is your great-grandson? Could you call him over?" Yi Hao turned to me with interest. "Could it be That Divine General Lin is also interested in meeting my great-grandson? However, my eyes carried a hint of killing intent. I have no interest in your great-grandson. I just want to send him on his way and end your delusions. As soon as these words were spoken, the guest area fell into complete silence. Countless eyes turned to me. They all knew about my relationship with Ning Tyran's granddaughter. Yi Hao's words were undoubtedly a direct challenge to my authority and a slap in the face to Ming Anwen and Bai Yuan, but my response was the strongest counterattack possible. Ning Tyran was very pleased with my reaction. Even he wouldn't dare say such things in front of so many people, but for the sake of his granddaughter, I dared to publicly oppose Yi Hao and his group. At that moment, Yi Hao narrowed his eyes and Divine General Lin, what do you mean by that? I smiled. Since Senior Yi doesn't understand, let me rephrase it. I said, let your great-grandson step forward. I'll send him to the afterlife on the spot. Hearing this, Yi Hao's expression turned extremely grim. Then, a terrifying aura erupted from his body. He said coldly, Divine General Lin, you're playing a dangerous game. Behind him, the other three, including the necromancer, were also glaring at me with hostility, but I wasn't afraid at all. With Bai Yuan and Meng Anwen's faction behind me, even if I were alone, I wouldn't back down. Even if it cost me something, they wouldn't gain any advantage. So, I ignored him and turned to Meng Anwen. Teacher, could you help me investigate who his great-grandson is? Meng Anwen immediately understood. Leave it to me. No matter how well he's hidden, I'll dig him out. Hearing this, Yi Hao's expression changed. He hadn't expected me to take it so seriously. Originally, he just wanted to annoy Bai Yuan and Meng Anwen and put me in my place. After all, in his eyes, no matter how strong I was still just a junior. So, he hadn't taken me seriously, but my current reaction made him realize that he had underestimated me. Now, he was in a difficult position. His great-grandson was indeed a genius, but compared to me, he was far inferior. If I truly held a grudge against his great-grandson, it would be troublesome. At that moment, a flash of killing intent crossed his mind. I, too, sensed his murderous intent. I sneered inwardly. Too many people wanted me dead. Even the Demon Emperor of the Abyss and the Dragon Emperor of the Dragon Clan wanted me gone. These few were far from enough to take me down. The atmosphere became tense. Yi Hao knew he had touched a nerve. Otherwise, I wouldn't have dared to speak so boldly in front of so many people. After a moment of thought, Yi Hao forced a smile. I was just joking earlier. I hope Divine General Lin doesn't take it to heart. Since the Divine Stone Dungeon has opened, let's all enjoy the performance of the young talents. But I just stared at him without saying a word. It wasn't until Meng Anwen intervened that the confrontation finally ended. Of course, I knew that I couldn't actually fight Yi Hao. If a conflict broke out between us, it wouldn't be good for the Divine Empire. Then, the god-level expert who had summoned the dungeon began explaining the rules. Each batch of entrants consists of 100 people. The dungeon has 10 levels, and those who pass the 9th level will receive half of a Divine Talent Stone. As for the 10th level, no one has ever passed it before. Let's hope someone can achieve it this year. Soon, the first batch of professionals entered the dungeon one by one. It's starting. It's starting. The long-awaited Divine Stone Dungeon had finally begun. However, just as everyone thought it was impossible for anyone to achieve a perfect score, I stepped forward as a challenger and entered this dungeon that had stumped countless geniuses. After Yi Hao was intimidated by my presence and publicly backed down, the god-level expert overseeing the dungeon announced that the dungeon was officially open. The first batch of professionals began entering the dungeon one after another. Through the projections, I could see the challenge. The first level tested the professionals' reflexes. The second level tested their strength. These two levels were basic assessments, and very few professionals were eliminated here. However, starting from the third level, the difficulty increased. All professionals would face a massive white tiger. The tiger's level matched each professional's level, and its combat power was only at the level of an elite monster. But even so, many professionals were eliminated at this stage. I was quite surprised by this. I didn't understand how such a weak monster could defeat so many people. Bai Yuan's voice sounded from beside me. This is normal. Not every professional can possess combat power like yours. Most professionals' combat power is inferior to even the small monsters in high-difficulty dungeons. Our human race isn't a powerful one, but this Divine Stone Dungeon is designed to select the strongest individuals among us. Hearing this, I immediately understood the purpose of the Divine Stone Dungeon. Its existence seemed to align perfectly with Antares' theory. Better to have one super god-level expert than 1,000 god-level ones. However, from beginning to end, no one had ever achieved a perfect score in this dungeon. Meng Anwen chimed in, Indeed, those who score above 90 have the potential to become God-level experts, but it's not a guarantee. As for those who don't even reach 90, they have almost no hope of becoming gods. Since the Divine Stone Dungeon was discovered 480 years ago, over 1 million people have entered it, but fewer than 500 have scored above 90, and of those, only about 50 have reached God level. The scene shifted back to the Divine Stone Dungeon. At this point, 90% of the professionals had successfully defeated the White Tiger and passed the 3rd level. Then, beams of green light fell on them, and all the professionals who had passed were instantly fully restored. Their skill cooldowns, stamina, and mental energy were all reset to their initial states. As for those who were eliminated, their expressions were grim. They hadn't expected to be eliminated at the 3rd level. It was utterly embarrassing. Not only did they feel ashamed, but even their fellow clan members felt humiliated. How pathetic. If it were me, I wouldn't have been beaten so badly. By now, the Divine Stone Dungeon had reached the 4th level. The guardian of this level was still the White Tiger, but this time, its level was 3 levels higher than each professional's. Even more people were eliminated at this stage. Bai Yuan explained, this is the nature of the Divine Stone Dungeon. With each level, the difficulty increases for the professionals. The first 2 levels are basic tests, but from the 3rd level onward, the guardians are elemental white tigers. By the 8th level, the guardian is a boss composed of 4 elemental tigers. As for the 9th level, it's called the endless level. There, the 4 elemental tigers will continuously spawn in the dungeon. The longer a professional lasts, the higher their score. Back then, Meng Anwen lasted 14 minutes and achieved a score of 94. Of the 100 people who entered this batch, only 5 were still in the 7th level. The rest had been eliminated, but even these 5 were in dire straits. Under the attacks of the elemental tigers, they could only defend themselves. In the end, this batch of professionals was eliminated at the 7th level. In the next few batches, only a handful of people made it to the 9th level. However, they lasted less than 5 minutes before being eliminated. The highest score was only 85. But in the next batch of challengers, one person caught the attention of Bai Yuan and the others. It was Feng Shui, the direct descendant of sword god Feng Chang'an, and the most outstanding disciple of the Feng family in this generation. With a sword on his back, he exuded a sharp and imposing aura. His strength matched his aura. Both were incredibly powerful. In the earlier levels, he had defeated the guardians with a single sword strike. When he reached the 8th level boss, he unleashed an even more powerful aura. The moment he drew his sword, countless violent sword energies erupted. The boss that had stumped so many people was instantly obliterated. Meng Anwen nodded slightly upon seeing this. Reaching the pinnacle of sword energy at just level 62. Very impressive. He deliberately raised his voice, so sword god Feng Chang'an could hear. Feng Chang'an was delighted. He was extremely satisfied with Feng Shui's performance. However, his joy was tempered as he glanced at me. A wave of emotion washed over him. What a pity. If not for Divine General Lin, Feng Shui might have dominated an entire era. He knew how strong I was, perhaps even more than others did. He had even researched my performance in the Divine Summer Ancient City. In comparison, Feng Shui still fell short. By now, Feng Shui had entered the 9th level. 4 fierce tigers, all at level 62, surrounded him. But even this couldn't stop the swift flash of the Windwhirl sword, its sharp blade gleaming. In the next second, one of the tigers instantly fell to the ground, lifeless. Even though Windwhirl had the ability to instantly kill monsters of the same level, his final score was only fixed at 90 points. This was because the number of tigers in the 9th level and their levels increased over time. No matter how strong he was, he couldn't possibly defeat dozens or even hundreds of elemental tigers. When he left the dungeon, Windwhirl discovered a stone had appeared in his mental world, half of a divine talent stone. The next group included Ning Yi and Mu Xianxian. Before entering the dungeon, Mu Xianxian waved at me. When Meng Anwen saw Mu Xianxian's class, he couldn't help but say, "Little you, this girl's class is extremely rare. You should cherish her." Hearing this, I felt a shiver run down my spine. Was he suggesting that I should take Mu Xianxian under my wing too? So, I pretended nothing had happened and turned my attention to the dungeon. At this moment, everyone had reached the 9th level, but Mu Xianxian was the first to be eliminated. Her score, like Windwhirl's, was 90 points. After all, her class leaned towards support, so achieving this score was already quite impressive. The second to be eliminated was Ning Yi. He lasted 1 minute longer than Mu Xianxian, scoring 91 points. And Mo Yun, who I thought was the strongest, only managed to score 93 points. You must know, he had obtained a primordial rune in the ancient battlefield, and even fused it into a rune skill. This shows how difficult it is to achieve a perfect score in the Divine Dungeon. But to everyone's surprise, Shu Han, who seemed the least combat-ready, ended up lasting the longest. He persisted until the 95th minute, when a deafening roar echoed from the dungeon. A 100-meter-tall, multicolored tiger appeared in the sky. Its massive paw came crashing down, and Shu Han had no chance to resist. He was instantly ejected from the dungeon. In the end, he scored 95 points, tying the highest record in the Divine Dungeon. You must know, even Ming Anwen only scored 94 points back in the day. Shu Han's achievement brought immense glory to the Shu family. By the 6th day of the Divine Dungeon Challenge, everyone present had completed their trials. Only 9 people scored above 90 points, but Shu Han still held the highest score. Seeing that no one had broken the historical record, Bai Yuan suggested that I give it a try. I nodded, then stood up and walked towards the entrance of the Divine Dungeon. My actions immediately caught everyone's attention. In an instant, the crowd began to buzz with discussion. Is the Spirit General going to challenge the Divine Dungeon? With his strength, he could definitely break the highest record. I wonder if he can get a perfect score of 100. I think it might be difficult. After all, the difficulty increases exponentially later on. Amid the chatter, I entered the Divine Dungeon. At this moment, Yihao's cold voice rang out, enlarged the screen showing the spirit. Let everyone witness his performance. However, the Divine Powerhouse overseeing the dungeon competition didn't move. Instead, he glanced at Bai Yuan and Ming Anwen in the guest area. As a member of Ming Anwen's faction, he naturally wouldn't follow Yihao's orders. But then, Ming Anwen calmly looked at Yihao and said, "Since Senior Yi wishes to see, I shall grant your request." With that, he pointed his finger, casting several runes. The formation in the arena shifted, and the screen displaying my challenge was enlarged. Shocked. I never expected that on my first attempt, I would break the historical record, and successfully enter the hidden level that no one had ever reached before. And so, after this year's Divine Dungeon Challenge concluded, no one had managed to break the historical record. So, as a challenger, I stepped into the Divine Dungeon. The first 2 levels were, without a doubt, cleared with ease. As soon as the tiger in the 3rd level appeared, before it could even let out a roar, it was instantly killed by my skill, Seabone Sharpfang. Although this skill was slightly inferior to my other abilities, it was more than enough to instantly kill monsters of my level. Moreover, I always believed that this skill would eventually evolve. For levels 5, 6, and 7, I cleared them all using just this one skill. In fact, since entering the dungeon, I hadn't even moved a single step. This scene left everyone in shock. Is the Spirit General really this strong? And I heard he can summon a skeleton army, but why hasn't he done so yet? Maybe these monsters are just too weak for him. He doesn't even need to use his skeleton army. The audience was in an uproar, with everyone focused on my every move. Even the elders from various families were closely watching me. Soon, I reached the 8th level. The boss of this level was a fusion of 4 elemental white tigers. Just as everyone thought I would summon my undead legion, I instead pulled out a longsword from my storage space. The audience was stunned. They couldn't understand why. I was using a weapon that didn't belong to my class. Like a swordsman, I charged at the boss, relying on my powerful attributes. Even without using any skills, my attack power was formidable. A terrifying sword aura shot out from my blade, and in the next second, the boss's massive body collapsed to the ground. Even Sword God Feng Chang couldn't help but exclaim, I never expected the Spirit General's swordsmanship to have reached such a level. Ming Anwen, standing nearby, smiled and said, Xiao Yu is trying to show the world that even without relying on skills, his attributes and techniques alone are enough to unleash immense power. This is a fundamental requirement for becoming a divine-level powerhouse. Now, I had reached the 9th level, for white tigers appeared simultaneously, surrounding me. and every 5 seconds, another one would spawn. If I didn't kill them fast enough, their numbers would keep increasing. Finally, I summoned my undead legion, but only one unit. Before the strongest skeleton berserker could even act, a dazzling elemental explosion erupted, and the elemental mage instantly annihilated the 4 powerful tigers. From then on, every time a new tiger appeared, it was instantly killed. The audience was completely shocked. Only now did they realize that my strength was on a completely different level from theirs. He's too strong. The 9th level's challenge is like child's play to him. I stood still, letting my undead legion do the work. 10 minutes later, a massive, multicolored tiger appeared in the sky. Since the Divine Dungeon's inception, many had reached this point, but all had fallen to this boss. This showed just how powerful this boss was. The audience held their breath, eagerly anticipating my performance. I think the Spirit General might not be able to defeat this boss. After all, no one in history has ever done it, but some were confident in me. Just because others couldn't do it doesn't mean the Spirit General can't. Hasn't he already created countless miracles? At this moment, Feng Chang'an teased, "Oh bye, old Meng, when you two challenged the Divine Dungeon back in the day, you didn't even make it this far, did you? It seems your disciple has surpassed you, and in my opinion, the Spirit General's limits are far beyond this." Bai Yuan, hearing this, smugly replied, "Of course. After all, he's my disciple. Our era may have passed, but his era is just beginning." At this moment, Yi Hao's expression turned complicated. In his eyes, aside from killing intent, there was also a hint of admiration. Although he harbored hatred, we were still both members of the human race. For this reason, he had to set aside his personal biases. At this moment, the boss exuded an astonishing aura. A layer of multicolored light formed a defensive barrier around its body. Moreover, these lights were like sharp blades, cutting through the surrounding air. It was clear that it possessed strength comparable to a world-level boss. Most important, its level was several levels higher than the challengers. For other classes, even a world-level boss of the same level would be an insurmountable foe. But for me, who had always fought monsters above my level, this was nothing. At this moment, the multicolored tiger finally moved. It raised its massive paw and slammed it down towards me. Although I could easily dodge this attack, I stood still, unmoving, allowing the attack to land on me. With a loud boom, the terrifying force caused the entire dungeon to shake violently. Everyone's hearts trembled along with it. My sea bone armor glowed brightly, but I didn't suffer a single scratch. A look of disdain flashed in my eyes. How weak. It can't even break my sea bone armor. The multicolored tiger was also shocked. Its full power attack hadn't even scratched me. As it pondered this, the skeleton berserker had already closed in on it. With a red glow, its massive blade struck the tiger, and in just one exchange, the tiger was severely injured. Just when I thought it was over, suddenly, a mysterious power surged from the dungeon, entering the multicolored tiger's body. Its level began to rapidly increase, finally stopping at level 69. Now, its strength was far greater than before, even surpassing the ancient phoenix from the ancient battlefield. But even so, it was still no match for me. I raised my hand and summoned another undead legion. At the same time, the curse of aging descended upon it. Although the multicolored tiger possessed some traits of a world boss, it had no resistance to curses. From this moment on, the damage it received increased nearly tenfold. Under the siege of the undead legion, it lasted less than a minute before collapsing. Before dying, it suddenly erupted in a brilliant light, illuminating the entire dungeon. Under the glow, the projection of the dungeon instantly disappeared. What's going on? Why did the dungeon's projection disappear? Did the Spirit General kill the boss? Meng Anwen immediately cast one rune after another, but the dungeon's projection still didn't reappear. Bai Yuan calmly said, "Xiao Yu must have defeated the multicolored tiger, triggering some mechanism in the Divine Dungeon. No one knows what will happen next in the dungeon. All we can do is wait." After all, Xiaoyu has accomplished something no one else has. At this moment, the light in the dungeon gradually faded, and a small path appeared before me. At the end of the path, I could see a pavilion. On either side of the path stood statues, each one lifelike. They held weapons, and their bodies exuded a fierce killing intent. It seemed this was the hidden level of the divine dungeon. However, no one had ever reached it before. Then, I led my undead legion forward, but as soon as I took a step, the nearest statue suddenly came to life. It instantly transformed into a humanoid figure and swung its sword at me. A sword aura dozens of meters long tore through space, striking me. My sea bone armor shattered instantly, and the tremendous force sent me flying. From the power of this single strike, I could tell the opponent's combat power should be above level 75. Because level 75 marks the beginning of a professional's ascension. Not only do a professional's attributes skyrocket, but those with high comprehension can also grasp the true essence of their skills at this stage. The power of their skills will increase dramatically. At this moment, the undead legion began to counterattack the statues. The first statue was instantly torn to pieces by the undead legion. As the statue died, a golden number suddenly appeared on the projection screen outside. Instantly, the entire 100 points. The spirit general actually scored 100 points. Everyone wore expressions of disbelief. Even the divine-level powerhouses present couldn't believe their eyes. Meanwhile, Bai Yuan and Meng Anwen smiled. It seems Xiaoyu has created another miracle. However, just as everyone thought the dungeon had ended, the score on the projection screen changed to... Seeing this, everyone was stunned. What's going on? Is the highest score in the divine dungeon not 100 points? Despair. Despair. I just casually broke the dungeon record, and now the genius professionals of the divine empire are feeling hopeless. The strength I displayed has even shocked the ancestors of various major families. This is because, since ancient times, no one has ever scored above 95 in the divine dungeon. Yet, I passed the dungeon with a perfect score. But just as everyone thought the divine dungeon was ending, my score suddenly changed to 101. Moreover, the score continued to increase by 1 point every 3 seconds. This scene left all the genius professionals in the audience dumbfounded. Even Bai Yuan and Meng Anwen were completely shocked. They never expected that the limit of the divine dungeon wasn't 100 points. Meanwhile, I was leading the undead legion on a rampage through the dungeon. As I advanced along the path towards the central pavilion, the statues on either side continued to awaken. Each statue's strength was comparable to a top-tier level 75 professional, but even they were no match for the undead legion. In fact, no special tactics were needed. We simply bulldozed through them. With each statue destroyed, my score increased by 1 point. However, I was only knowing that the trial was still ongoing. After destroying hundreds of statues, I finally reached the pavilion at the end of the path. On the stone table in the center of the pavilion was an ancient box. Inside the box lay a complete divine talent stone. Clearly, this was the reward for this level. Unfortunately, I already possessed a divine talent stone, so this extra one was of no use to me. At that moment, the shattered stones at my feet suddenly disappeared. The destroyed statues were restored to their original state. At the same time, a new path appeared behind the pavilion. Seeing this, I couldn't help but feel shocked. Could it be that this divine dungeon has more than 9 levels? Driven by curiosity, I continued along the new path. Passing through the pavilion, I saw another set of statues. However, there were only 12 this time. Although there were fewer statues, I didn't let my guard down, because the strength of these statues was undoubtedly far. I summoned 2 more undead legions and approached them. Suddenly, one of the statues transformed into a humanoid figure and fired a sword beam. The beam exploded mid-air, and the shockwave sent me and the undead legion flying. The power of this strike had reached the level of a demigod. I was sent flying over 100 meters. Before barely managing to stabilize myself, I then cast a detection spell on it, but the result, I was shocked by the information returned from the detection spell, because the information indicated that this statue was only level 80, but the power of that earlier strike had clearly reached the level of a demigod. Could it be that the professionals of the previous era were far stronger than those of today? Suddenly, I thought of the Divine Xia ancient city in the ancient battlefield. If the Divine Xia ancient city was also a product of the previous era, then the professionals of that time were terrifyingly strong. As I pondered this, another sword beam exploded in the air. This time, not only was the power immense, but the explosion's range was also much larger. All the skeletons within the explosion radius were sent flying. Meanwhile, the puppet archer transformed into a sharp arrow and shot towards me. Its speed far surpassed my lightning undead arrow. I was instantly shocked, because the divine flying sword was a special skill unique to archers. It couldn't be learned through study. It could only be mastered through comprehension. Most archers could never achieve this, yet this puppet had done so. This showed just how terrifying these puppets' strength was. It seems I'll have to get serious. So, I summoned all of my undead legions and cast the Curse of Aging. Under the curse's effect, the puppet archer's speed slowed significantly. Its forward momentum was instantly disrupted, and then it was met with an endless tide of undead soldiers. Surrounded by the undead legion, it quickly fell into a disadvantage. The skeleton berserkers unleashed their skills, slashing at it relentlessly. Just as it was about to be destroyed, another statue awakened. This time, it was a swordsman puppet. With a single swing of its sword, a sword beam filled with violent energy swept across the battlefield. This strike sent all the skeleton berserkers surrounding the archer puppet flying. Another puppet with demigod-level strength, and it possessed combat abilities that only divine-level experts could wield. However, its attack power was still lacking. If people outside knew I was facing such opponents, I wonder what they would think. And there were still 10 more such puppets, waiting to awaken, but I didn't care. I summoned all my elemental liches, and immediately, multiple auras appeared around the skeletons. A green light exploded in the air, and under the combined effects of the toxic explosion and toxic aura, each second dealt significant damage to the two puppets. Meanwhile, the Frost Lich's aura, combined with the Curse of Aging, slowed them down even further. Soon, the two puppets were once again surrounded by the undead legion. At that moment, a third statue awakened. This puppet, like the swordsman puppet, had awakened because it sensed the danger facing the other puppets. It chanted an incantation, and in the next second, a massive fireball over 100 meters in diameter appeared in the air. Its intention was clear: to disperse the undead legion and rescue the two puppets from their encirclement. But I couldn't let what happened earlier repeat itself. The skeleton mage's elemental explosions began targeting it relentlessly. In the blink of an eye, its spell was interrupted. As the sound of shattering puppets echoed, the swordsman and archer puppets were swiftly dealt with by the skeleton berserkers. But the moment they were destroyed, the remaining 9 statues simultaneously awakened. 2 of them, dressed like healers, raised their staffs and chanted incantations. 2 beams of holy light descended from the sky, landing on the destroyed puppets. In the next moment, their shattered bodies began to rapidly reassemble. Soon, the 2 puppets were fully revived. Seeing this, I was utterly shocked. This is a resurrection skill. The professionals of the previous era actually possessed resurrection skills. At this moment, the 12 puppets formed a complete team. The support puppets immediately buffed the team, and the combat power of all the puppets skyrocketed. Even a true divine-level expert might not be able to defeat these 12 puppets. Yet here I was, only facing these terrifying opponents. No wonder no one had reached this point in hundreds of years. Although the undead legion had surrounded them completely, their attacks couldn't break through the puppets' defenses. To turn the tide, I would have to use the primordial runes, or have the elemental liches self-destruct. Without hesitation, I activated the strong soldier skill. Instantly, The combat power of the Undead Legion increased more than tenfold. The skeleton berserkers unleashed their skills, their blades glowing red as they struck the puppets repeatedly. Each strike dealt massive damage to the puppets. Seeing this, the two knight puppets immediately activated their ultimate defense skills. In the next moment, a defensive barrier appeared around every puppet. Seeing this, I was once again shocked. This skill should only affect the caster, but now it's covering every puppet. What surprised me even more was that the mage's signature shield could also be applied to others. Clearly, these were lost skills from the previous era. Suddenly, I realized that my sea bone armor could also be applied to others. Could it be that my skills also belong to the previous era? Moreover, my class might have existed in the previous era, but was lost over time. With the puppets, knights and mages simultaneously activating their defensive skills, they managed to withstand the Undead Legion, even under the Strong Soldier's buff. I was stunned. The Strong Soldier's skill, which had always been unstoppable, had no effect on these puppets. Now, there was only one way. Using the essence blood of the god of poison, I summoned a toxic lich. I no longer cared that this was a dungeon. I had to destroy these puppets and claim the reward for this level. As soon as the toxic lich appeared, it plunged into the midst of the puppets. A green light exploded among them, and 2 seconds later, all the puppets were reduced to fragments, scattered on the ground. I clapped my hands and continued along the path to the pavilion. On the stone table in the pavilion, there was another box. When I opened the box, a burst of starlight shot into the sky. Seeing this, I was overjoyed. I thought this was the same light that appeared when I awakened my skills. Then I remembered a legend I had read in the royal archives. It was said that in ancient times, there were skill gods who possessed the power to defy the heavens. Could the item in the box be a skill god's artifact? With this thought, I cast a detection spell. The next moment, my entire body trembled with excitement. Enhanced. I never expected that by absorbing the dreaded violet flame that even gods feared, my strength would increase so dramatically. The divine talent stone within me had reached its limit. It turned out that when I opened the reward box for the 11th level, I was overwhelmed with excitement because inside was the legendary skill god's artifact. It could enhance one or multiple skills, allowing them to break through their limits. However, I wasn't in a rush to use the skill god's artifact. After all, I hadn't even learned all my skills yet. What if I awakened a skill later that was more worthy of enhancement? So, I decided to wait for the right moment to use it. At this moment, no new path appeared behind the pavilion. It seemed the trial had come to an end. But the moment I stored the skill god's artifact, the entire dungeon seemed to lift some kind of restriction and began to tremble. Then, a spatial rift slowly appeared before me. I immediately thought, this might be the entrance to the next level. Without hesitation, I stepped inside. However, what I saw next left me utterly shocked. Before me, the divine talent stones, which others would kill to obtain, were scattered on the ground like trash. In front of me was even a mountain, made entirely of divine talent stones, and each one was a complete divine talent stone. But when I reached out to take one, an invisible force blocked me. After several attempts, I had to give up. As I walked past the mountain, I saw a miraculous flower. It was covered in blue flames, and its 6 sapphire-like petals shimmered like glass. Just by looking at it, I could feel the immense power it contained. Before I knew it, my right hand had reached out toward the flower. Just as my fingertips were about to touch it, my heart suddenly skipped a beat. I jerked my hand back, and a cold sweat broke out all over my body. It felt like I had just walked through the gates of hell. Not bad, kid, a voice said. You managed to snap out of it at the last moment. I turned around and saw a young man standing on the mountain. To my surprise, he was in a soul state. I cautiously asked him who he was and why he was here. The young man, as if teleporting, appeared right in front of me. You can call me Sherlin, he said. I'm the overseer of this dungeon. I wanted to come out earlier, But you hadn't fully passed the trial yet. Luckily, you snapped out of it at the last moment. Otherwise, even though you're immune to fire, your soul would have been burned to ashes by the violet flame. But if that had happened, I would have stepped in to save you. After all, you're the first person to make it this far. You're much stronger than those fools outside. Lin, who hadn't spoken in who knows how long, rambled on for a while. From him, I learned that he was from the previous era, but that era had been destroyed due to a great catastrophe. However, Lin refused to elaborate on the details of that disaster. In addition, I also learned the origin of this dungeon. It turned out that this dungeon was a relic from the previous era, created to select qualified individuals and reward them. Those who reached the 9th level were considered barely qualified. Only those who passed the 10th level and obtained a complete divine talent stone were truly qualified. Even in their era, such individuals were considered geniuses. As for my performance, it was considered the pillar of the era. Lin then said in a low voice, "The people of your era are too weak. I can't imagine how devastating it will be when the catastrophe strikes." Hearing this, I was shocked. After all, our human race has a half-step transcendent expert, standing guard. Yet, in his eyes, we were still so fragile. So, I asked him what level the professionals of his era had reached. Hearing my question, Lin proudly said, "In that era, transcendents were the generals, half-step transcendents were the commanders, and high-level gods were the soldiers." Hearing this, I was stunned. I never expected that the professionals of the previous era were so powerful that even high-level gods were just ordinary soldiers. You must know that in the present era, they would be considered top-tier strategic assets. This shows just how vast the gap between the two eras is. However, at this moment, Lin spoke in a slightly comforting tone. "Although the people of your era aren't much to speak of, your strength has surprised me. You actually passed the final trial. As a reward, I will give you another skill god's artifact, and I will also grant you a great opportunity." With that, he plucked a petal from the violet flame flower and threw it at me. "It can increase the upper limit of your soul's strength, which will be of great benefit to you when you become a transcendent. However, you must first endure the refinement of the violet flame." As soon as he finished speaking, blue flames erupted, enveloping me completely. Intense pain surged through my body, and I cursed Lin in my heart. This guy had just set me up, but I soon realized that under the refinement of the violet flame, my soul was gradually strengthening. At that moment, a terrifying killing intent erupted from within me. The divine talent stone, which had been dormant for so long, suddenly flew out on its own. A sharp aura filled the air, and the violet flame burning on my body was quickly devoured by it. But even after consuming all of it, the stone wasn't satisfied. It began absorbing the flames from the violet flame flower. Moments later, the divine talent stone was tinged with an eerie blue color. Even the killing intent within the stone had changed color. Then, with a whoosh, the stone returned to my body. Seeing this, Lin couldn't help but curse, "Holy crap, you actually have a divine talent stone, and its quality is extremely high." Even in our era, a high-quality divine talent stone was something transcendents dreamed of obtaining. I'm starting to wonder if you're the chosen one of this era. By now, the violet flame had been completely absorbed by me, and my soul strength had significantly increased. However, I also felt a bit disappointed. If the divine talent stone hadn't absorbed most of the violet flame, my soul might have become even stronger. Lin noticed my thoughts and chuckled. "Don't complain after getting such a good deal. The divine talent stone's role is far greater than you imagine. Its true power will only manifest when you reach the transcendent level. But since it just absorbed a large amount of violet flame, it can now unleash a portion of its power to refine your soul. Your soul's foundation will continue to strengthen. It's just a shame that my violet flame flower will take who knows how long to recover." With that, he tossed me another skill god's artifact. "You've received all your rewards for clearing the dungeon. Now, I need you to promise me one thing. When you become a transcendent, return here and open the secret vault my master left behind. You have no idea how many treasures my master stored here when he created this dungeon. Opening it will bring you immense benefits for your future cultivation. Just the number of skill gods artifacts inside is beyond count. Hearing this, I agreed without hesitation. Such a free benefit was too good to pass up. Meanwhile, outside the divine dungeon, everyone was staring in disbelief at the dungeon score. They had thought that 100 points was the dungeon's limit, but after I cleared the 10th level, my score had already reached 400 points. Each of the 12 puppets afterward added another 50 points to my score, and in the end, my score settled at 1,000 points. Although no one knew what I had experienced inside the dungeon, the changes in my score made it clear that I had undergone a trial unlike any other, and the difficulty of these trials must have been unimaginable. Just as everyone was speculating about what trials I had faced in the dungeon, a spatial fluctuation suddenly emanated from the dungeon. In the next moment, my figure appeared at the dungeon's entrance. At the same time, an invisible force swept across the area with my appearance, causing everyone present to feel suffocated. Such powerful soul energy. The divine level experts all wore expressions of shock. They could sense the immense soul energy emanating from me. Compared to when I entered, my soul energy had at least doubled. This level of soul energy is already on par with ours. Even the one from the Creation God Academy didn't achieve such feats in his youth. At this moment, Wang Lin whispered into Yi Hao's ear, "Elder Yi, what should we do?" Yi Hao sighed helplessly and said, "Don't provoke him anymore. In the future, he will only become more terrifying." Then by Yuan and Meng Anwen, they've arrived. The two great demon kings of the Abyss world have descended into the human world simultaneously. They thought they could completely annihilate me this time, but little did they know they were about to face a tragic fate. It turned out that after successfully absorbing the violet flame, my soul power had significantly increased. In fact, it had surpassed that of some ordinary divine-level experts. As a result, when I exited the dungeon, the pressure I emitted made all the participants feel suffocated. Even the elders of the major families and the military experts couldn't help but be shocked. They never expected that a mere level 56 professional like me could already rival divine-level experts in soul strength, and the strength I displayed made the military big shot Yi Hao back down on the spot. In his eyes, my future achievements might even surpass those of the. As long as nothing unexpected happens, I could become the first transcendent level expert of the human race. However, Wang Lin seemed a bit skeptical. "Elder Yi, aren't you overestimating him? Although he cleared the divine dungeon, that doesn't necessarily mean his strength is extraordinary. Moreover, the footage of his trial was suddenly cut off. I suspect that Bai Yuan and Meng Anwen orchestrated this." Yi Hao smiled faintly. "Trust my intuition. If you were to face him, you would definitely die. I know you have ambitions for the Divine Tower, but even after half a lifetime of effort, I still haven't gained its recognition. With your potential, you'll likely end up like me. So, take my advice. Before the Divine Tower chooses its master, you can keep trying, but don't cling to it stubbornly, because you simply can't hold on to it." Meanwhile, in my mental world, the originally deep red divine talent stone had now turned blue. Even the killing intent it emitted had turned blue. Under the refinement of the violet flame, I felt that my killing intent had become purer. This realization shocked me slightly. After all, purifying killing intent is extremely difficult. Even Yin Guangxing, who had worked tirelessly to purify his killing intent, had struggled immensely. Yet, my killing intent had become incredibly pure just by being burned by the violet flame. When I can fully utilize this killing intent in the future, its power will likely be However, aside from refining my killing intent, the divine talent stone would occasionally release a wisp of violet flame to merge with my soul, allowing my soul to strengthen at a slow and steady pace. When I returned to the guest area, Bai Yuan immediately asked me what rewards I had obtained. The reason he asked this in front of everyone was mainly because many divine-level experts were eagerly awaiting my answer. They all wanted to know what the trials and rewards were after the 9th level. However, while Bai Yuan was speaking, he gave me a meaningful glance. I instantly understood, and then I took out the box containing the Divine Talent Stone, telling everyone that the 10th level involved facing puppets with strength comparable to top-tier professionals. Defeating them all would allow one to clear the level. After saying this, I opened the box, revealing the Divine Talent Stone inside. Seeing the contents of the box, all the participants were stunned. The reward for the 10th level is actually a complete Divine Talent Stone. That's something every high-level professional dreams of obtaining. However, the divine-level experts present knew that the rewards didn't end there. They recalled the soul energy I emitted when I exited, so they speculated that enhancing the soul was the ultimate reward of the dungeon. This was far more valuable than any stone. With my exit from the dungeon, this year's Divine Dungeon Trial officially came to an end. Afterward, I approached Ning Yi, planning to take her to level up together, but Ning Yi flatly refused. Although leveling up with you is fast and easy, I can't always hold you back. My leveling speed is at least half as slow as yours, and I heard from Grandpa that the enemies you're facing are getting stronger. So, you need to level up quickly. Don't worry about me. I've already arranged to level up with Sister Mo Yun. She spoke eloquently and convincingly, and I was thoroughly persuaded. After bidding her farewell, I headed to the Kunlun Divine Palace. At the same time, in the Abyss World, the Demon King stood respectfully outside the Demon Emperor's palace. The Demon Emperor's ethereal voice slowly echoed out, "Tell me, what is Meng Anwen of the human race secretly planning?" The Demon King bowed respectfully and replied, "According to recent intelligence, Meng Anwen seems to be setting up some kind of formation. Moreover, the area covered by this formation is vast, almost encompassing the entire Divine Xia Empire. However, every time he completes a section, the military takes over its management. Our spies in the demon worship sect haven't been able to gather more detailed information yet." Hearing this, the Demon Emperor fell into deep thought. The Demon King kept his head lowered, not daring to look up. After a moment, the Demon Emperor spoke calmly. "Meng Anwen is the only dual-class divine-level expert among the humans. His status within the human race is extremely high, and he controls half of the military's forces. Not long ago, he and Bai Yuan launched a sweeping operation against your demon worship sect. All of this is because your previous actions were too high-profile. You thought controlling a few high-ranking humans meant they couldn't touch you. Now that Meng Anwen has made his move, your half-crippled demon worship sect can't even figure out what he's doing. What use is such a useless thing?" Hearing these words, the Demon King dropped to one knee in fear, not daring to make a sound. In the Abyss World, the Demon Emperor was an omnipotent being. With just a flick of his finger, he could obliterate the Demon King. At this moment, the Demon Emperor tossed him a black crystal orb. "Find a way to activate this near the formation Meng Anwen is setting up. I want you to handle this personally." Hearing this, the Demon King trembled all over. "Understood, Your Majesty." After the Demon King left, the Demon Emperor muttered to himself, "Emperor D, what exactly are you up to?" The Emperor D he referred to was none other than the human race's only half-step transcendent, the same old man from the Creation God Academy that Meng Anwen and Bai Yuan often spoke of. Meanwhile, the Demon King, holding the Demon Emperor's crystal orb, left the Demon Emperor's palace. His heart was filled with unease. Regarding the events happening among the humans, he originally had no intention of reporting them to the Demon Emperor. After all, even he didn't know what Meng Anwen was up to, but the Demon Emperor somehow got wind of it and directly summoned him. Clearly, someone had informed the Demon Emperor, "Don't let me find out who it was, or I will definitely not let you off." But the top priority now is to follow the Demon Emperor's orders and head to the human world. However, he didn't plan to go in his true form, but rather with a clone. There is a massive barrier. If his true form were to enter the human world, it would come at an unimaginable cost. Moreover, the human world's god-level powerhouses are no joke. Even sending a clone would likely result in it not returning. He hated the informant to the core. Just then, a spatial rift appeared beside him, and the Dark Sky Demon King emerged from it. He immediately asked the Enchantress Demon King about my whereabouts. He knew the Enchantress Demon King had the demon worshippers under her command, making her the most informed about human affairs. Hearing this, the Enchantress Demon King's eyes gleamed, and she smiled charmingly. All right, I happen to have orders from the Demon Emperor to head to the human world. The Dark Sky Demon King instantly understood her meaning. He then took out an extremely dark demon stone and handed it to the Enchantress Demon King. At the center of the stone, abyssal flames burned fiercely. In the abyss, demon stones are also ranked by grade, and the one the Dark Sky Demon King took out was of the highest grade, a top-tier demon stone. Enchantress Demon King, take my clone with you this time. Half a day later, on a remote island in the human world, a grand ritual was underway. A black demon stone burned fiercely at the center, as over a dozen demon worshippers sacrificed their lives to open a spatial rift. Then, the Enchantress Demon King and the Dark Sky Demon King's clone emerged from the rift. The Dark Sky Demon King sensed the direction and said, "I've finally found you. This time, let's see how you escape from my grasp." With that, he flew swiftly toward my location. However, the Enchantress Demon King watched his departing figure with a look of disdain. She believed that the Dark Sky Demon King's clone would still be defeated by me. The reason she brought him along was that, given the Dark Sky Demon King's temperament, he would surely attract the attention of human powerhouses. This would allow her to secretly investigate Meng Anwen's actions, and perhaps even bring back this god-level clone alive. It's here. It's here. The final battle between me and the Dark Sky Demon King has finally arrived. Despite being nearly 40 levels below him, I still braced myself to face him head-on, because this would be the best opportunity to test my strength. Just moments ago, the Enchantress Demon King and the Dark Sky Demon King had simultaneously descended into the human world. The Dark Sky Demon King immediately flew toward my location, while the Enchantress Demon King began investigating Meng Anwen's actions. Following the trail of energy, she quickly found the place Meng Anwen had once visited. Haikou City had already been taken over by the military, indicating that Meng Anwen had finished setting up the formation and left. Now, all she needed to activate the Demon Emperor's crystal orb. To her surprise, there wasn't a single god-level powerhouse guarding the area. With her stealth abilities, no one could detect her presence. Soon, she found the formation Meng Anwen had set up. However, the formation was extremely complex, and she couldn't comprehend its intricacies. Yet, the formation gave her an indescribable sense of grandeur. She could only imagine how devastating. She was curious about what Meng Anwen intended to do with this formation, but that wasn't her concern at the moment. Her top priority was to complete the task given to her by the Demon Emperor. She couldn't afford to fail. He found a hidden corner and activated the crystal orb. The orb then transformed into a ball of flames and merged into the formation. Although the task assigned by the Demon Emperor was completed, the Enchantress Demon King felt that things had gone too smoothly. It was so smooth that it made her suspect something was wrong. As she pondered, the formation before her suddenly activated. A beam of light shot into the sky, descending like an inverted bowl, trapping the Enchantress Demon King. Her expression turned grim. Damn it, I knew it couldn't be this simple. Under her furious gaze, Meng Anwen descended with the Divine Tower in tow. You've got some nerve, Meng Anwen, to ambush me. Meng Anwen smiled faintly. You overestimate yourself. I've long anticipated that you abyss scum would cause trouble. That's why I embedded warning mechanisms in every formation. I didn't expect to catch small fry, but a big fish like you. Now that you're here, stay. With that, he formed a hand seal and the divine tower shot out a beam of light that wove into a deadly formation in the air. Seeing this, the Enchantress Demon King's expression changed drastically. She knew that this clone was likely doomed. Even her true form wouldn't stand a chance against Meng Anwen, let alone a mere clone. But she wasn't ready to give up. She threatened to self-destruct unless Meng Anwen let her go, or else she would take the entire Haikao city down with her. Hearing this, Meng Anwen shook his head. You have no chance. As he spoke, the divine tower expanded dozens of times, sealing off the space. Now, even if the Enchantress Demon King self-destructed, Haikao City wouldn't suffer a single scratch. Seeing this, the Enchantress Demon King's expression turned even uglier. She finally understood how formidable Meng Anwen was. No wonder rumors in the abyss claimed he was even more terrifying than Bai Yuan. Beams of light shot out from the formation, charging toward the Enchantress Demon King. Seeing this, she unleashed her terrifying abyssal aura to counter, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't shake the formation. Despair filled her face. Beams of light struck her body, and at this rate, her clone wouldn't last more than 2 seconds. But just then, the Demon Emperor's crystal orb, which had merged into the formation, suddenly appeared before her. Abyssal flames surged into the sky, instantly neutralizing the formation's attacks. Meng Anwen's face showed a hint of surprise, while the Enchantress Demon King's expression turned to delight. In the center of the abyssal flames, a shadowy figure appeared. Though its true form was unclear, an extraordinary aura emanated from it. The moment it appeared, the formation shattered like glass. The figure glanced at the divine tower, and with a flick of its finger, a deafening explosion erupted. The massive divine tower was sent flying, and even Meng Anwen was thrown back uncontrollably. The figure then gestured for the Enchantress Demon King to leave quickly. Without hesitation, she fled into the distance. Seeing this, Meng Anwen quickly steadied himself and controlled the divine tower to give chase. Though the figure's attack was astonishing, he realized it was merely a projection. Such attacks could only be used once or twice. Just as Meng Anwen was about to catch up, the Demon Emperor's projection pointed at him again. Meng Anwen immediately blocked with the divine tower. With a loud crash, he and the tower were sent flying once more. This attack caused Meng Anwen to cough up blood. But as the Enchantress Demon King was about to disappear from sight, a sword light shot from afar. The light cut through the sky for hundreds of miles, and the fleeing Enchantress Demon King suddenly stopped. Her body then split into pieces, leaving only a ball of flames burning in the air. Seeing this, the figure in the flames roared in fury. Jiang Yi, you've actually revived. Meng Anwen was also stunned. He had previously heard from me that Jiang Yi might revive, but he also knew how difficult it was for a half-step transcendent powerhouse to revive. Yet, Jiang Yi had truly revived, and so quickly at that. This showed how terrifying the being in the ancient battlefield was. Even someone who had died centuries ago could be revived, but all they saw was a sword in the air, with no sign of Jiang Yi himself. However, Meng Anwen immediately recognized the sword as Jiang Yi's demon-slaying sword from back then. A voice then emanated from the sword. Demon Emperor, it's been a long time. Jiang Yi has missed you dearly. When I return in full, I will visit the abyss to greet you. In the next moment, the sword light carried a terrifying force, slicing the Demon Emperor's projection into pieces. The demon-slaying sword then turned to Meng Anwen, and another clear sword cry rang out. You've done well. With you here, humanity can rest assured. After saying this, the demon-slaying sword transformed into a beam of light and vanished. Meng Anwen watched its departing figure, clenching his fists tightly. As a level 95 god-tier powerhouse, he had always stood at the pinnacle of humanity. Only the Divine Emperor from the Creation God Academy could surpass him. He had almost forgotten the taste of defeat. But today, both the Demon Emperor and Jiang Yi had taught him a lesson. Neither of them were opponents he could easily contend with. The Demon Emperor, with just a projection, had overwhelmed him, and Jiang Yi, who hadn't even fully revived yet, had slain the Demon Emperor's projection with just his demon-slaying sword. Meng Anwen's long-dormant fighting spirit was now fully ignited. At the same time, after 2 days of intense dungeon grinding, my level had risen to 58. In a couple more days, I should reach level 60, and then I'll be able to learn some new skills, and they'll definitely be much stronger than the level 40 skills, since level 60 is a major milestone for top-tier classes. With a hint of anticipation, I prepared to enter the dungeon again. Suddenly, a massive spear shadow appeared in the sky and slammed down toward me. I had no time to react and was sent flying. The tremendous force shattered my bone armor, and even the undead army in my summoning space was injured. I instantly realized that the attack's power had reached God tier. Moreover, I sensed the aura of the abyss. Without hesitation, I summoned my entire undead army. As soon as the Lich General appeared, it began healing the undead army collectively. At the same time, a second spear shadow struck me. The massive damage was transferred to the undead army. Fortunately, the Lich General's healing allowed the undead army to withstand the attack. The undead army then quickly dispersed to avoid being hit by area attacks. Just then, a third spear shadow crashed down. This one was faster than the previous two. All 3 spear shadows had struck in less than 2 seconds. If I hadn't summoned my undead army in time, I might have been instantly killed. I didn't dare to slack off. A violent killing intent instantly filled the air. Finally, as the third spear shadow descended, I caught a glimpse of my attacker. Massive wings stretched across the sky, and in his hand was a huge spear burning with abyssal flames. The spear shadows were launched from this weapon. I immediately recognized him, the Dark Sky Demon King. Among the many demon kings of the abyss, he was one of the most powerful. However, this was but a clone. His actual strength was around level 90 to 91. If I used all my strength, I could definitely fight him, but who could have expected a mere level 50 intermediate class professional had actually attracted the attention of one of the 10 great demon kings, the Dark Sky Demon King. Facing the overwhelming pressure emanating from the Dark Sky Demon King, I felt no desire to retreat. I immediately activated the skill-gathering power attached to the primordial rune. In an instant, my attributes were pushed to their peak, but then I noticed that my attributes had broken through their previous limits. Previously, when using the gathering power skill, each attribute could only reach a maximum of 1 million points. Now, it had reached 1.5 million. I instantly realized that this was all thanks to the soulfire from the Divine Stone dungeon. Its tempering had greatly enhanced my soul, and the soul is one of the factors that determine the limit of attributes. At this moment, my overall strength had increased by dozens of times compared to before. Apart from the skill to summon the undead army, the damage of my other skills had also undergone a qualitative improvement. So, I casually threw out a soul flame. The Dark Sky Demon King let out a deafening scream. The intense pain instantly interrupted his attack, but this only enraged him further. He transformed into a black light and charged straight at me, but I wasn't the least bit flustered. I activated the Strengthened Soldier skill and the Curse of Aging simultaneously. Then, I launched another soul. The pain this time was far more intense than before. The Dark Sky Demon King's movements froze midair, even though he had some resistance to curses. After being weakened by the Curse of Aging and the Strengthened Soldier's skill, the damage and pain caused by the Soul Flame had increased by nearly tenfold. Taking advantage of his pause, I summoned my entire undead army. The strongest among them, the Skeleton Berserker, swung its massive blade and unleashed its skills. Before they could even get close, the Dark Sky Demon King swept them away with a swing of his spear. However, the undead army wasn't my killing move. A crow engulfed in flames appeared by my side. It shot toward the Dark Sky Demon King with a trail of fire. The Dark Sky Demon King sensed the god-tier aura emanating from the Flame Lich. He immediately unleashed his skills, and a barrage of spear shadows rained down on the Flame Lich. With a deafening explosion, The flame lich was blown apart midair. A terrifying wave of fire erupted, forcing the dark sky demon king to retreat repeatedly. However, he wasn't injured. He quickly regained his footing and charged back. But at this moment, a faint smile appeared on my lips. A green light flashed in my palm, and a venom lich, created by the god of poison, appeared by my side. The moment the venom lich appeared, the dark sky demon king immediately changed direction and retreated frantically. He knew full well the power of this lich. One of his clones had been destroyed by its self-destruction before, so he understood that he absolutely couldn't let this lich get close. As he retreated, he continuously unleashed his skills. In an instant, the surrounding space was filled with spear shadows. The venom lich was bombarded with attacks like a rainstorm. As a result, it only managed to charge a few hundred meters before being destroyed. You think you can use this trick against me? You're delusional. The dark sky demon king sneered disdainfully, but I was slightly shocked. This was the first time the venom lich had been destroyed before it could even get close. It seemed I needed to find a way to get it closer to the dark sky demon king. Although the skill bone prison could restrain his movements, it could only hold him for half a second at most. This was far from enough to allow the venom lich to get close to him. Suddenly, a bold idea came to mind. I had 100% immunity to poison, so I could completely ignore the toxic gas from the venom lich's self-destruction. I decided to use my own body to trap the dark sky demon king. Without hesitation, I raised my hand and cast bone prison on him. Then, my speed suddenly increased. In an instant, I crossed hundreds of meters and appeared right in front of the dark sky demon king. I grabbed him tightly, locking him in place. The dark sky demon king was completely stunned by my actions. He couldn't understand why I was holding on to him, but then he noticed all the skeletons retreating, and out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of green light. He instantly realized what I was planning to do. Desperately, he struggled to break free, his body erupting with flames. His wings transformed into sharp blades, slashing at me. However, all the damage was transferred to the undead army. Moreover, my constitution attribute, under the effect of gathering power, had reached a staggering 1.5 million, making my defense incredibly formidable. At the same time, 38 lich generals were constantly casting healing spells. In just an instant, the skeleton's injuries were completely healed. No matter how the dark sky demon king attacked, he couldn't break free from my grip. You're insane. You'll die too. At this moment, fear filled the dark sky demon king's eyes. Although this body was just a clone, he only had 2 clones in total. One had already been destroyed by my poison in the ancient battlefield. If this clone were to be lost as well, it would be extremely difficult for him to create another one. After all, creating a god-tier clone required a massive amount of resources and time. At this moment, a brand new venom lich had already pounced on him. The venom lich exploded silently, and toxic gas quickly spread. The dark sky demon king could only watch helplessly as his body was slowly corroded by the poison. He also noticed that I remained completely unharmed in the toxic gas. How is this possible? How can you be unharmed? Little did he know, my poison immunity was at 100%. No poison in the world could affect me. In the end, with a look of unwillingness, he completely dissolved in the toxic gas. The system notified me that I had killed the Dark Sky Demon King's clone, gaining 90 billion experience points and 1 merit point. On my military badge, a 4th golden star slowly appeared. However, this star was still faint. Only after I killed 3 more Demon Kings would this star fully materialize. Just then, Bai Yuan rushed over. He had sensed an anomaly in the soul mark I left in the soul hall, so he immediately came to check what was happening. Upon learning that I had just been hunted by the Dark Sky Demon King's clone, Bai Yuan was slightly surprised. The Dark Sky Demon King is a mid-tier Demon King. His clone is at least level 91. He actually came to the human world just for you? It seems you've been added to the Abyss death list. However, he added, The Dark Sky Demon King only has 2 god-tier clones. Now that you've destroyed both of them, he must be furious. I then told him that if there was a chance, I wanted to return to the abyss. My words shocked Bai Yuan. He hadn't expected me to have such thoughts. The last time I entered the abyss, it had been an accident. Now, I wanted to go there willingly. It wasn't hard to guess what I planned to do. At that moment, a loud rumble echoed in the air. Meng Anwen appeared abruptly, accompanied by the Divine Tower. Bai Yuan was puzzled. Weren't you busy setting up formations? Why are you here? Meng Anwen explained what had just happened. Hearing this, Bai Yuan was shocked. You're saying the Enchantress Demon King's clone brought the Demon Emperor's will to Haikao City, and Jiang Yi's demon-slaying sword destroyed them both? So, Jiang Yi is about to revive? Meng Anwen nodded. The reason I came to find Xiaoyu is because I sensed another aura on the Enchantress Demon King. So, I suspect another Demon King must have come for Xiaoyu. Thankfully, Xiaoyu is safe. He then let out a long sigh. After this encounter with the Demon Emperor's will, I realized how weak I truly am. I could barely withstand a mere wisp of the Demon Emperor's will. If I were to face the Demon Emperor's true form, I'm afraid we wouldn't even have the strength to resist. So, for this soul fusion war, I have to be selfish for once. Also, call over Yin Guangxing and the other old guys. I stood silently to the side, knowing that Meng Anwen had always prioritized the greater good. But this battle had shaken him, prompting him to act selfishly for once. However, the biggest beneficiary of this plan would still be me. 2 days later, Meng Anwen's plan was set into motion. The armies of the Divine Empire began to mobilize. Before the plan commenced, Bai Yuan explained everything clearly. He told everyone that participation in the plan was not mandatory. Those unwilling could choose to opt out. Of course, all those who participated and survived would receive benefits. Even though they knew the plan carried the risk of death, tens of thousands still volunteered to join the Soul Fusion War. They were all resolute and unwavering. During these 2 days, I finally reached level 60. Now, it was time to awaken new skills.